Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. The day is finally here, all you minties. This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at the X-Men Mutant Massacre Prelude from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, before going any further, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the folks at Marvel for sending us an advance copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on September 10th or 11th, depending on where you get your books. So what we're looking at here is the direct market cover of the X-Men Mutant Massacre Prelude. This is the one that's supplied by Bob Layton. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover, and that is the one supplied by John Romita Jr. These are interesting choices for the spines, however. We have the Phoenix on the standard edition, and we have Wind Rider, which is, of course, Storm from the Nightcrawler series by Dave Cockrum, on the direct market spine. That is really interesting choices. When I think of the Mutant Massacre Prelude, really neither one of those two come to mind, but, you know, we're going to talk about the stories collected in here. So everything underneath the dust jacket is the same. So let's take a closer look at the book itself, because underneath the dust jacket, everything is the same. We have this particular cover from Marvel Age, and I thought it was such a unique cover. That's why I decided to go with this one instead of the one by John Romita Jr. with Doctor Doom, which is a really cool cover, but it doesn't really highlight the X-Men as much. Not that this highlights all the X-Factor members, nor their Cyclops costume looks a lot different. But again, it was a preview. So you have Claremont, Layton, Nocenti, Adams, Geis, Romita Jr., X-Men Mutant Massacre Prelude right there. And this is going to be white. So X-Men Mutant Massacre Prelude, Claremont, Layton, Nocenti, Adams, Geis, Romita Jr., and Wind Rider there, or Storm. And then the golden era before their darkest day. I kind of like that. That's nice. I like the boldness there. I actually like the design of the book. It does stand out on the shelf, though. The book is huge, by the way. This is a big book. I'm going to explain the contents here in a little bit. And then here's some of the covers, not even all the covers of what's collected in here. Some of the synopsis of what's going on in this big boy. And then what is collected here. And while I have the spine, I'm going to go ahead and let you know, you can either have it here in the reading order of X-Men. You can have Uncanny X-Men Volume 5 that leads into the X-Men Mutant Massacre Omnibus, but you'll also need the first volume of X-Factor or the Epic Collection, because those first 8 issues and the annual number 1 are not collected in oversized format. Or option 2, you can start getting the event omnis, because this collects everything that was collected in the Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 5. And also the first 8 issues of X-Factor, as well as the annual number 1. So the big question is going to be, which route do you go? That really depends on the way you want to collect these. And I am going to make a separate video about that, a deep dive in the differences between this omnibus and these two omnis on the left-hand side. So today I am primarily focusing on this omnibus though. And then a later video going into a deeper dive as to what's collected in here, and then what the benefit of this is, what the benefit of going this route is, and then of course how it all fits into a reading order in omnibus format. But back to this, let's go ahead and take the dust jacket off. Yes, I'm so glad they used that Arthur Adams piece. And speaking of Arthur Adams, we have some here on the left-hand side. Mutatis Mutandis. That is an interesting way to start this article here. Or I guess a little blurb as to what's happening here and the changes. And then the bios on the creators: Chris Claremont, Bob Layton, Ann Nocenti, Arthur Adams, Jackson Butch Geis, John Romita Jr. But that's the way your flaps look. Underneath this big omnibus dust jacket is this amazing image by Arthur Adams. I've always been a big fan of this because I love the way that he draws Rachel. Feels like he didn't really get enough of a chance to draw that character, and man, that Storm. All right, we are going to crack this book open. We're going to look at exactly the mapping here, what's collected in here, talk a little bit about the stories. Not so much because I've already done an overview of Uncanny 5 and X Factor. Heck, I just did X Factor 1 maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. Because of delays, this was supposed to have come out way after X Factor. X Factor has been delayed for, oh my gosh, almost 8-9 months now. Maybe even a year. And then, of course, the extras here. And like I said, there will be another video that goes into a deeper dive as to what's in here and what's in those two Omnis. All right, let's go ahead and get it opened. Okay, let's go ahead and open this omnibus up. It has end sheets here that are blue and lots of yellow. They're using lots of yellow, kind of like the actual logo here and the font there. It's like blue and yellow. X-Men Mutant Massacre Prelude. And then here's the actual credit page right here. Chris Claremont, Dave Cockrum, Roger Stern, John Byrne, Bob Layton, and Bob Harris, Luis Simonson, Tom DeFalco, and Nacenti. I love, like, all these writers. I love this era of X-Men. It's when I started collecting it monthly here when I moved to America. You have John Romita Jr., Barry Windsor-Smith, Dave Cockrum, Arthur Adams, Rick Leonardi, Butch Guice, Mark Silvestri, Alan Davis, John Bolton, just to name a few, Dan Green, as far as the inkers, Barry Windsor-Smith and Dave Cockrum, Joseph Rubinstein, Terry Austin, P. Craig Russell. And then some of your colors like Glynis Oliver, Barry Windsor-Smith, Patty Cockrum, Christy Sheely, and some of your letters like Tom Orszagowski and Jim Novak and Diane Albers and Joe Rosen, just to name a few. Your table of contents right here with 2 images from John Romita Jr., negative images that they've used before. And again, lots of yellow. And it has lots of pages in this book. Okay, so let's talk about what's collected in here first. So collected in here is Uncanny X-Men 194 to 209, X-Men Annuals 9 and 10, New Mutants Special Edition number 1, New Mutants Annual number 2, Nightcrawler 1 through 4, Longshot 1 through 6, Avengers 263, Fantastic Four 286, X Factor 1 through 8, Annual number 1 of X Factor, Iron Man Annual number 8, Amazing Spider-Man 282, and then material from Marvel Fanfare number 33, and Classic X-Men number 8 and 43. This book has 1,496 pages and retails for $150. Now, if you've seen my overview of Uncanny X-Men 5, and you've seen my overview of X Factor Omnibus Volume 5 or 1, and you kind of have made up your mind about how you're going to collect X-Men for this particular era with all of the oversized hardcovers and omnis that they have. I'm sure you're here just to see what the mapping is like. I've been reading comics for 40 years. Oh my gosh, it's going to be 41 years. Oh gosh. X-Men is my baby. I love X-Men. Every year I would reread X-Men in chronological order, in the way that they were intended to be read. Sometimes I would do publishing order, but I like story order better. I made up my own story orders when I was in high school and going back and reading single issues. And if you're wondering how this book is mapped, with the exception of the material of Classic X-Men number 8 and 43, this omnibus is mapped 99% the way I would have mapped it. It is a dream mapping come true. And what do I mean by that? Like I said, I'm going to talk about this really quick and then get into like the meat and potatoes of the story. I mean that you have Uncanny X-Men issues, and after Life, Death 2, you go right into the Nightcrawler miniseries, which is exactly where I would have put it. This is exactly when I read Nightcrawler miniseries, because Nightcrawler takes place before the Uncanny X-Men 196, but I wanted all 4 issues to read. And this is the return of Dave Cockrum to his favorite character. And it's the type of stories that he wanted to tell with the swashbuckling hero of Nightcrawler. And it features a princess, it features pirates, it features a evil sorcerer, Chagrin the sorcerer. It's the big shark guy. So again, mapped exactly where it needs to be read. And then you jump back over to X-Men. If you're wondering, wait a second, what about issues of X-Factor? X-Factor didn't really start until after issue 201 of X-Men, when the big decision is made. So really quick during this time, we have this particular team of Nightcrawler and Shadowcat and Wolverine and Cyclops and Phoenix. That's what this young lady is named. And that is Rachel. She is from the future. And they're kind of like disbanded a little bit. Like the team, Storm has lost her powers. By the way, I am going to be talking about some minor spoilers here, just in case you haven't read this era of X-Men. Nothing too big, but just minor spoilers. There's the Asgardian War, mapped exactly where I think it would have belonged. And it's interesting where they put Annual Number 10, because there was always a debate of where do you put Uncanny X-Men Annual 10, because technically it takes place before the Mutant Massacre. But where was Longshot during the Mutant Massacre? We see Psylocke, why not Longshot? So it's put here where it belongs. We have the trial of Magneto, long before there was the trial of Magneto in the Krakoa era. But this is the big turning point for X-Men, when Professor Xavier decides to go to space and leaves his X-Men to his mortal enemy, Magneto. So in issue 201, Cyclops and Storm decide to fight for leadership of the X-Men. And when they do that, Storm ends up winning, because Cyclops is newly married. He has a child. This is the child right here. And this is Nathan Christopher Summers. Now, his name is a lot longer because he becomes a big player later on. But for now, he's just a baby named Nathan Christopher Summers. After that is where Marvel Fanfare 33 is. This is the one that's drawn by June Brigman. And it's the return of Magneto going back to that island. And he meets up again with Lee Forrester. Man, these ladies always like themselves an older gentleman. But again, exactly where I would have read it. Now, there are two ways of thinking about this era. Once Uncanny X-Men 201 happens, you can go the route of X-Factor and start reading X-Factor. And then go back to X-Men. X-Factor, X-Men. X-Factor, X-Men. So, Uncanny X-Men 201, you can go read X-Factor 1. Then jump back to X-Men 202. Then go back to X-Factor 2. I used to do that. But then I thought, I think I'm going to start, I want to get to know these characters. And this is the way that I would have done it. With one exception. This is the one thing I don't agree with, and that's okay. This is perfect mapping. It works either way. So you have X-Men. This is actually a flashback type of story. And it goes all the way to 205. I actually stop reading at 204 and then go read the first few issues of X-Factor. So they have it stopping at Uncanny X-Men 205, which is a masterpiece by Barry Windsor Smith. This is the Wounded Wolf story, which shows the return of Lady Deathstrike along with the Reavers, and she is fully changed. And these characters are the ones that Wolverine chopped up in Uncanny X-Men 133, and they're coming back for revenge. Now, this is where you go and jump to the beginning of X-Factor, which is, of course, where they find a cocoon. And then that cocoon reveals that it was Jean Grey living inside the cocoon, that it wasn't her that died on the moon. It was the Phoenix. Jean Grey never died, and that leads into X-Factor 1, and I said Cyclops was married to Madeline Pryor and had a baby. And now there's dilemma because the entire 5 original X-Men are back. So what are they going to do? Well, they formed the Exterminators to pretend to go and hunt mutants, but what they're really doing is bringing the mutants back to them. So there's all these flashbacks. This is the other thing. I would have put the classic X-Men 8 in here, at the very least, and maybe 43 later on, because Jean is still having this dilemma. How does she survive all this? So you do get to find out a little bit through here and then, but if you really want to know, the classic X-Men issues are all the way in the back. Again, I've talked about this thoroughly, including stories like this with poor Wheelie here. I call him Wheelie like that's that's a Transformers character. This is Willie. Man, he is a mutant that has an imaginary friend. Or is he imaginary? That makes him do evil things. We have the annual here that they have to go to the Iron Curtain in Russia. And then we have the Alliance of Evil here with some new characters that leads into the first appearance of Apocalypse. And that's in issue number 6 of X-Factor. So they go all the way to 7. And then after 7 is where you jump back to Amazing Spider-Man. Whoops, I meant to say X-Men. But Amazing Spider-Man is here. This is a funny story where J. Jonah hires X-Factor to go after Spider-Man. And then you jump back to X-Men Love that mapping. One other thing I need to note for the people that don't want to watch the deep dive video, this is insane because I don't know why it was decided this way, but something you probably noticed that in X Factor issue number 6, so the first full appearance of, oh, sorry, that's 5. The first full appearance of Apocalypse, and in 5, you have letter pages. Those later, these letter pages are not collected in the X Factor Omnibus. As a matter of fact, there are no letter pages in the X Factor Omnibus. Neither issue 5 here, foreshadowing Apocalypse, nor issue 6. But all the letter pages from X Factor are collected in this omnibus. So I'm not sure why they decided to do that. Usually it's like the ongoing chronologically ordered mapped omnis that are usually based on the Marvel Masterworks, but there are no Masterworks of X Factor. So I thought, oh, well, there's probably no letter pages here. As a matter of fact, whenever I did my top 13 choices, I chose this book, The Route to Go, because I thought, well, this is a beautifully mapped book. And the way that they have all these issues in here is perfect. Now that they added the letter pages, that's insane. And it's not just the letter pages for X Factor, by the way. It's also the letter pages for X-Men. So the Uncanny X-Men letter pages are in here. But they are also in the Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 5 letter pages. But this is mapped differently because in Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 5, you have all the issues of X-Men, and then in the back you have X Factor, and then you also have Longshot. So mapped a little bit different. Again, I'll do a thorough overview so you know about how the mapping works. But to me, this is the way. If I had the job of mapping an omnibus, this is the way I would have done it. Like I said, couple of little changes, nothing that's a deal breaker. You have the Longshot miniseries here by Ann Nocenti, who was a joy to interview. And of course, the legendary Arthur Adams. So this is so awesome. I don't get enough of this particular art. I love it. I want a gallery edition. This is the New Mutants Annual number 2, which is the first American appearance of this young lady, and that is Betsy Braddock. Now, she's had a horrible thing that happened to her in the pages of Captain Britain. I love how it's all connected. Captain Britain, of course, we got an omnibus of that if you want to go and read it. The Alan Moore and Chris Claremont run, with, of course, artwork by Alan Davis. This is where she gets remade, and she gets to come to America. Now, it's not the first time that she gets remade. Or, I mean, it is the first time, but then it's not the last time, because eventually she'll get remade into an assassin, an Asian assassin, in the pages of Acts of Vengeance. And then we have annual number 10. The debate is over. This is where Marvel decided to put it. Where do I read this? I actually read this right after issues 209. That's when I read this. I read this after issue 209 because it is the first appearance of Longshot in the X-Men. He gets to join the X-Men. I love the graduation costumes for the New Mutants. I don't know why Cannonball's wearing that ridiculous helmet there, but I love it. And Cypher's wearing this Cyclops costume. Sure, whatever. They actually get to wear this later on when they do graduate, when something tragic ends up happening. But Arthur Adams coming back for that. Now, this is where you're going to find the classic X-Men material. And it's mainly the story, this is horrific, how Jean survived the crash and how she became the Phoenix. And again, where she really went mentally, maybe, when she was trapped as the Phoenix Force. And then all the way in the back, you'll find some Marvel Age Annual 1 material. You'll find pinups here and posters. And then, of course, cover sketches. I'm not going to go through each and every one of these because I will say that just about everything has been collected in between X Factor Omnibus Volume 1 and the Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 5 as far as the extras. But my whole point of doing this overview was to kind of give you an idea of how this was mapped, what's collected in here exactly. But the big thing for a lot of people is what was the reading order here. And I love that about reading orders, right? People never agree on a proper reading order. Even like the official Marvel reading orders that you find online, there are some differences there too. I like that. Because we all like the way that to read it our way when we had single issues. But in collected editions, I think it does become like, okay, this is now the definitive way of doing it, or at least it should. And they put a lot of thought into this particular omnibus, and I'm glad that they took the time to do that. You have all this stuff again collected previously, and then the extras in the back, like the trade paperback. Now, what about the build of this book and the binding? Let's look at it, because we're talking about a 1,496 page omnibus. It's almost 1,500 pages. There's that big, beautiful sewn binding and thick, glossy paper stock, printed at the Donnelly printer. Now, Uncanny 5 was printed at the iMac printer. The X Factor, the original X-Men, was printed at the Donnelly printer as well. So this one is also a Donnelly printer with very minimal bleed through happening, laying over great because of that eye. And for a big book, it feels sturdy. Like, this is very, very normal when people ask me about this. Oh, my book feels like it's going to fall apart at the spine because of this right here. It's just too big of a book. I've never had an omnibus that has had a crease in here, with the exception of JSA Volume 2, but those were known for bad binding. But if you're worried about the crease, these books are made to last. That's why I tell you, read it on got it upside down. Read it on a flat surface if you want. I always joke people about this, like when my wife was nursing, when she had our first child, she ended up getting a Bobby pillow, which is a pillow that wraps around your waist. You lay the baby on there and you nurse. I actually started using it to game, and then I started putting my Omnis on top of it. Maybe I should market that as a near mint condition reading pillow. Oh, I gotta get it on that copyright. But anyway, that gives you a quick synopsis as to what this omnibus is, and I will be doing a deeper dive. Probably got to get that out in the next couple of days. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel for that big, deep comparison. But that's it, everybody. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and the build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if this is the route you're going to take for the Mutant Massacre Prelude, or if you're going to stick to Uncanny 5 and X Factor 1 and a possible X Factor 2, or continue collecting X-Men in omnibus format with a volume 6 and 7 whenever those come out. But I do always like to ask people what route they're going to take, because I guess now we have come to the time where we're going to have options. Collect events, collect creator-centric omnis, or collect the entire runs. So that is it, everybody. Again, I'll be doing a further, deeper dive into the difference between this and X Factor 1, and also the Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 5. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.